The 2020 GLC AMG 43 Coupe. Now that is quite the name, and before I talk about the interior of this product, let's decipher the current Mercedes-Benz SUV lineup for you. So on the cheap end of the scale, you have the GLB and GLA. They are both 4-cylinder CUVs. Then you have this GLC, which comes in both coupe and regular SUV body styles. It starts off with a 4-cylinder, and Mark's done a video on that car already. Then you have this turbocharged 6-cylinder in the 43 model. Then you have the real McCoy, the twin-turbo V8, which comes in the AMG 63S variant. Then you have Now, as I've already mentioned, Mark has done a video on the GLC 300, and that video was just remarkable. If you want to learn everything there is to learn about the GLC's interior, watch that video. For the sake of your time and mine, I'm going to give more of a brief overview of this cabin and talk about the specific changes the 43 AMG trim level has made, most notably to the steering wheel, infotainment, and center stack. If you're like me and you need your SUV to feel like a race car, AMG has you covered with this flat bottom steering wheel, which is entirely leather and has this center stripe in the middle, so you know exactly what position your wheel's at any minute. There are these great aluminum paddles, which just feel superb. You hear that positive click? It is the right girth as well, unlike the X3M, which makes you feel like you're holding a baseball bat. On the center stack, the notable change is this performance exhaust switch, which in AMG's words allows you to turn the system from a powerful setting to a balanced setting. And on top of that, AMG's also added a little bit of software to the UI of this car, the infotainment system. You have AMG performance pages, which allow you to monitor things like your telemetry, so you know how much throttle you're giving it, how deep you are into the brakes, your oil temps, your trans temps, your horsepower and torque figures, and a G meter. All of these things are incredibly necessary in an SUV, let me tell you. So with that, let's get in the back seat. I'm going to talk about the rest of the infotainment and the ergonomics of this car. Now, once you get past all of the AMG marketing nonsense that I was talking about earlier, you come to realize that this is a very, very competent SUV when it comes to doing the duties of a SUV. So from a design standpoint, this is one of my favorite cabins on the market currently in this segment of vehicle. Between the use of materials, aluminum, quilted leather, black leather, and the clever use of hard black plastics, this cabin feels like there's a lot of character. It feels unique in the segment. It doesn't feel so cookie cutter like the X3 or X4. On the ergonomic side of things, it is a very comfortable cabin. Despite the coupe roofline, I do have headroom back here. I have legroom. I can fit behind myself at 6 foot tall. The trunk space is a little compromised when compared to the regular GLC, but it's still very usable. The seats themselves in the front are very comfortable and almost infinitely customizable when it comes to seating position. They're the right length for someone that's taller. If you're shorter, you can get up nice and high. My only complaint with them is that if you don't have the ventilated seat option like this car doesn't have, the quilted leather does get fairly hot. On the infotainment side of things, and when it comes to screen technology, it's some of the best in the segment. However, it is let down by the UI. Mark goes into that at length in the E53 video he did, but it's not intuitive to say the least. The audio system, the Burmeister system in this car is great. It's probably one of the better ones, if not the best, in this segment of small SUVs. So with that, let's head to the shop.
Underneath the GLC 43 AMG Coupe. Now, Mercedes says this is a combination of a sports sedan or sports coupe and an SUV. They didn't want you to lose the practicality, but still wanted sports car-like features and handling and performance. So a lot of that work gets done underneath. So what have they done? Well, with the AMG side, they've added special dampers here that have air springs integrated into the dampers. They're also electronically adjustable. This has a multi-link front suspension. You can see 1, 2, 3, and then the upper A-arm ball joint up top. Now, all of this is aluminum, all of it, and they've designed this specifically to handle the weight of the vehicle and to give you the feeling that you have more control. And a lot of this is creating more negative camber under compression. Now, the front subframe is also all aluminum here. This is more of a luxury car look. This looks definitely more expensive, and that's partly why this rides amazing on the street in typical comfort mode. You can use it like a total sofa, or it goes into the sportier modes where it still doesn't beat you up, but you can do things you wouldn't expect to do with this. That's the goal, at least. But aside from the front, let's take a look at the back half. When you're done shopping at Tommy Bahama, you want to win. Performance exhaust with real tips, electronically controlled via your drive modes, or you can turn it on and off. It makes it more throaty, and it gives this car a little bit more character if you choose to use that. AMG rear suspension, air springs like the front, and electronically controlled dampers set to your drive modes. And it has an individual setting, so you can always keep it soft or firm however you want it. Next is the rear differential. This all-wheel drive system, this is a rear-wheel drive architecture, so it always has that kind of rotation feel to it, but 69% of the power is sent to the back, and then the rest is to the front, which makes it a usable all-wheel drive setup year-round. Speaking of that, there's a ton of stamped steel back here, including the subframe, but something Mercedes does here compared to other brands, they use a corrosion inhibitor sprayed all over the steel parts. The best part is, after 3 years, this isn't going to look like a rust bucket compared to some of the cheaper brands. Now, the last thing to talk about is there's not a ton of covering here. You can still get at everything. It seems like an easier vehicle to access than some of the Mercedes products. There's not a million covers. But let's talk briefly about the engine before we get this on the road. Under the hood, we have a twin-turbo or bi-turbo Mercedes V6 that makes 362 horsepower. This is one of their legacy designs. And you have a ton of cooling here. You have the intake ports right on the front bumper. You have the intercooler that's closer to the radiator support. So there's a lot of airflow that gets in here to cool this off. It does run very hot. It's connected to a 9-speed torque-converted automatic that has slightly different tuning for the AMG model, but let's get behind the wheel and see what it's like to drive. Oh, Jack, we're gonna take off in the GLC 45? 43?
GLC 43.
43 AMG, right?
Coupe.
Oh. Oh! What is wrong with this transmission?
Someone needs to teach you how to drive an automatic, Mark.
I guess I don't know how to drive an automatic. Let's try that again in manual mode and see if it does the same thing. It doesn't seem like to be shifted in first gear. There's got to be something wrong with this. Okay, we've driven this a lot. You got to leave it in automatic mode because it doesn't matter what you do shifting this thing manually. In first and second gear, it's like doing something crazy.
Do you think, really, honestly, the person who's buying this car, the 45-year-old man or woman who is too busy making business deals to buy a real car, does that in this thing?
No, they don't. So let's put it in automatic.
Let's put it into business deals mode, Mark. You put it into comfort. You just cruise around and talk about how rich you are, because that's what this car is.
But I want my loud exhaust, Jack.
Doesn't that thing sound amazing? Actually,
right.
It does sound pretty good.
It does sound pretty good. I mean, it's augmented, obviously, with some artificialness from the engine tone. So we have an inline 6, turbocharged.
We should probably sort out what this competes against. This competes against the X4 M40i. So the slightly less powerful variant of the X3M we just did a video on. And I will say this has a lot more character than the X3M has.
Oh, you bet your bottom dollar it does, Jack. These cars from the outside have about as much character as a log in the toilet bowl. On the inside, I've really enjoyed driving this. It's much like the last Mercedes we just got out of. I love the driving position. I like the steering wheel. I like the gauges. I like the way everything works. The ride quality here annihilates the BMW. It is so soft, and then when you want to firm it up, it's just firm enough to have a little bit of fun on the street.
No, this is how they should have done the X3M, honestly. The one thing that I will say about the driving characteristics of this Mercedes is the front end feels about 900 times better than the X3. It actually feels like you're connected to something.
No, it does. So let's talk about handling here. We're back into Sport Plus. Now back into manual mode, because I want to be a manual man. Brakes feel really good. It's got a ton of grip. It's got a ton of body control when you're in Sport Plus. This is super enjoyable to drive like an asshole, but even more impressive, it's even better when you just flip everything back into comfort. Like we were talking about earlier, that's how people are going to drive this, and that's about it. What else is there to say?
This is a really good cruiser. It has a great interior from a character standpoint. I think technically, from a proficiency standpoint, the BMW engine, the B58, which is in the X3 M40i, is better, and the ZF is dramatically better than this.
Yeah.
And the interior works better.
It is. This transmission definitely feels like it's broken a lot of times. It's very herky-jerky for a torque-converted automatic, but I think that's partly why I like this better than the BMW. It's more refined, and it has more character. Even though it feels kind of broken, it makes more weird noises. It has this mechanical uniqueness that a lot of the other German cars don't have, and I mean, there's not much else to say other than that. It feels like I'm getting headbutted by a turtle.
Well, Mark, on that note, let's head to the final thoughts.
Okay. Final thoughts on the Mercedes GLC 43 AMG Coupe. I, like most others, thought coupes were two-door cars, not four-door SUVs prancing around trying to look like a car, and this is just the state of the market. People love SUVs, they're selling, manufacturers need to make money, so this is where they're putting more investment in. So it's a raised up car looking thing, whatever. So that's the biggest detractor of this. It's got awkward styling. They haven't figured out a way to kind of make it look normal, and that might be a huge pro for somebody that wants something different. But again, trend with BMW, Mercedes, and now Porsche is doing the same thing. So let's talk about the pros and the cons. Mercedes does a great job with body control, ride control, and drivability. With the air suspension, this thing is a textbook example of how you make a street car. It is good on bad pavement. It's great on soft glass pavement while still giving you body control from the softest setting all the way to the firmest. It has personality when you drive it. It doesn't feel like a cardboard sterile experience like many of the BMWs have become and some of the Audi products. And if you like that flair, if you like the character, you're gonna love the Mercedes lineup. The interior is so good here in terms of diversity of materials like Jack talked about. Now the negative is cohesion. The electronics are overbearing. If you're somebody older that has not grown up with the advent and push of technology, the control structure is just so confusing. I complained about it on the past few Mercedes, and this is the same thing here. So take some time, a learning curve to get used to that. But once you do, most of the things work pretty well, and the audio system makes up for some of it. It's a great place to be, and I think that's what you're gonna buy this for. And some of the usability, although it is compromised with the coupe roofline. Take a look at it. I'm not gonna say it's the greatest thing ever, but it certainly has its strong points. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.